everyone, I'm Mark de Grasse. We're going to listen to Podcast Mark, where we talk about personal development, professional development, and business development in that order, trying to find the intersection of all three and how they all kind of coincide and reinforce each other or don't, which is also a problem. Today, I have a friend of mine, Corey Quinn. He's actually somebody I work with at Digital Marketer, and we created some content. I think you spoke at the event at M3. One of the masterminds.
Not this time. Yep.
Not this time. Well, hey, I'll try to think. I'm like, oh man, there's so many.
We've been on each other's podcasts. We met out in Costa Rica a while back at another conference. Yeah. So.
Well, it's I know you're going through it. You know, you were in the corporate world for a long time, transitioned to consulting, and now we're kind of talking about the transition from consulting into, a real business, which I'm very interested in as well. So welcome to the show.
Thanks, Mark. I'm super excited to be here. Full disclosure, I'm used to talking about business, so this is going to be a great opportunity for us to have potentially a different kind of conversation, which I'm excited about.
Yeah, well, it's if you do it right, it's actually really natural. And the more I've done it, kind of say like, hey, what does this mean when I do this in my business? What does it mean for me personally? And what does it mean for how I do everything outside of the business? And what I've found is that the more in line you can make all aspects of your life, just the easier everything is. But you have to talk about it and you have to identify it. So let's start at the beginning, or not quite the beginning, but let's start with kind of your corporate transition to the consulting, which is a big step.
So thank you. So the quick story there is my last role was as a chief marketing officer at a fast growing agency, which is, you could hardly call that corporate, but I'll tell you why I characterize it that way is I joined when the company was doing about $20 million. I was the first marketing hire. We grew the business to eventually $200 million. And I grew my team from myself to a team of 30 people. The company itself grew from 100 people to 1,000 people. And it was at that point when the founder decided to raise some private equity money. And he raised $100 million, sold a minority stake in his business. And along with that money came a whole bunch of new executive leadership. And these are sort of folks from outside of the culture of this company. What made it so great was sort of the traditional consultant types, like the ex-Bain kind of guys, and who are looking at the world much differently than we did. So there's a lot of change, and at that point of that, at the agency after having grown it for all these years and really had a great experience, it was the universe's signal that it's time for me to do what's really I've been called to do throughout my life, which is to go back to entrepreneurship. And so I left the agency. I had an opportunity to stay there if I wanted, but not in the capacity that I was really excited about. So I decided to, like I said, take that opportunity to step away. And instead of going and finding another job at another agency or a SaaS or a B2B where I can use all this experience and this track record, I decided to go out as a consultant. And I think looking back now, Mark, I think part of that was just a little bit of PTSD with regard to the massive amount of growth and pressure that I had in that company. Obviously, we were seeing great results, but I really needed a break. And so I decided to consult, and specifically in the realm of marketing. And I've been doing that for a while. And then it was not too long ago, I realized that in order for me to truly live the life that I want to live as it relates to how I live my life in terms of, let's say, how, the freedoms that I have, the time freedom, the money freedom, what's going to get me there is not just basically doing project work for a bunch of clients. It's actually building a true company with employees, with MRR, all these great things. So that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Man, well, that's a story, because I think I've been through like variations of that, but when you do bring in private equity or you go public or all these things, you have like a different level of structure that you have to have now. And now you're reporting to somebody, and now the guy who was the owner is reporting to somebody. And
Yeah.
$100 million is a lot of money. So,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
you lose.
It's not just the money. There's a lot of stuff that comes with the money, right?
Oh yeah, I mean there's a million
Yeah.
strings. Actually, I worked for a startup when I got out of college, and one of my
Mm.
jobs was to write the business plan and actually go raise the funds. And so we went to angel
Wow.
investors, and we went to VCs, and we were pitching everybody on it. I'm just like, and then after that, I was like, man, I don't want to do that. That was so much work, and you don't
Yeah.
realize how much time actually goes into just the reporting factors of like the structure that they need. And I don't even know if that model, could work a ton now. And it's kind of
Yeah.
evidenced by everybody's getting laid off, right? I mean, there's just
Yeah.
like massive layoffs. So, but your decision to go into consulting, I think it's a great step, personally,
Yeah.
because it's kind of like you're not going in the deep end, like, okay, I'm going to start a business, because when you do that, it has to work, right? And now you have a
Yeah.
different, even more urgent stress on you versus taking contracts here and there. And, it's sort of a job, but it's still a step in the
Yeah.
right direction. So how did
Yeah.
you, for the consulting, did you decide
Yeah.
to essentially do kind of that full stack marketing or the CMO, like fractional CMO work?
I did. So I dabbled a little bit to start, and it looked like me doing fractional CMO work, which, effectively was working for companies that really needed a true CMO but couldn't afford one. So the scope of work
Hmm.
was, ridiculous, and a lot more work
You're in
than
the department.
resources to execute. Yeah. which did not align with my vision. And I did sort of, one-off things, smaller projects, but where I really settled in was focusing in on leveraging a lot of my background, my experience, specifically around helping agencies to grow. I had this great experience at my last agency from 20 million to 150 million. I was able to codify a lot of the sort of the major learnings and the strategies from that experience, as well as blended with other disciplines in my overall experience. And I began to productize that that as a service going out to agencies and helping them to grow, specifically from being a generalist, sort of one size fits
Mm,
all, to a vertical market specialist. During this time, I've written a book. It's actually I'm publishing it next month. I'm super excited about that.
nice.
And again, it's all about this process and how to apply it to your your agency to get this transformation.
Wow, that's huge. Well, and that's and this is where we get the personal side of it, because that's some big swings. I mean, going from like essentially running the show at the company, growing it huge, and then
Yeah,
essentially having a whole different structure come about that didn't align with anything, and then
yeah,
going into the consulting, which actually has a big transition too, because now like we were talking about, you don't just have one boss that you're serving, like you have multiple bosses that you're serving.
that's right. Right.
How did you kind of cope with that transition, because that had to have been not easy, I would say.
So what was really easy was confidence and certainty that I was doing the right thing for my career and my life, and that I wanted to be a consultant. I definitely did not want to go right back into the rat race, and that would make me unhappy. So that was really clear.
Mm,
As far as making it work, I think a part of it, to me, I'll be honest, is I was a little bit lucky in that people knew about me and the
mm,
company, and when I put a shingle out on LinkedIn, a lot of people raised their hand and said, "Hey, I'm familiar with you or your story. I'd love to work with you." And for a period of time there, I had a lot of opportunities, and I got to kind of cherry pick and choose which ones I felt that I could be the most impactful and I get the most joy out of. That lasted for a while, but not forever. And then where I found myself not too long ago, a couple months ago, was wrapping up a couple of really great engagements
mm,
and realizing that I hadn't done any of the sales or any of the marketing to kind of support and finding the next client. And I realized, okay, I'm living in project land, and I not only need to be the consultant, but also the salesperson, as well as the marketer, as well as the accountant, as well as the strategist, and all of those things. And as a result of that, despite making pretty good money being a consultant, I was spending very long days up at 5, finishing at 7, trying
uh,
to get through everything. So it was kind of that was when I got to that realization. It's like, hey, consultant solopreneur is great, but I'm I'm not where I want to be.
Yeah. Well, I mean that's huge because I had, I think we all kind of come to that realization like, okay, yeah, that project went great. I got some money out of it, but essentially it
Yeah.
doesn't scale. Like it doesn't lead to like, oh,
Right.
okay, now you could take that and turn it into like, another $1 million. It's like, no,
Mm.
no, that was the money you got, and that was good. And now you have a story
Yeah.
to tell. And that's the extent
Yes.
of where this is going. So I think that
Yes.
was my realization. And that's a really good note about the employees, because I'm from California, and it's kind of
Mhm.
like I was always trying to avoid hiring because it was just so expensive and there's so many requirements. And
Yeah.
not that it's bad that employees have a ton of power, but they have like a lot of power, and definitely California is known for not being friendly to business. And so I kind of grew up with this mentality of like, no, I'm gonna automate, I'm gonna do as much as I can myself. I'm never gonna hire if I can help it.
Yeah.
And it took me another 20 years in business where I'm like, you know what, having some help would be kind of nice. Like
Yeah.
I could see that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I don't think I had the faith in myself to be able to train the people, or I don't know. It was some kind of block, but that's definitely over. Is that kind of what you realize? Like you're just tired of doing everything, or maybe somebody could do
I'm
it better?
tired of it. Tired of doing everything I did. I think it was one of these, perfect week exercises where it's like,
Mhm.
okay, pull up a Google Calendar where it's completely blank, and then just kind of fill out like what's an ideal week for
Mhm.
you or myself. And as a result of doing that, it looked a lot different than the week I was living. And I also met with my wife, and we talked about our expenses and the lifestyle that we want to live, and the things we want to do. We want to remodel the house. We want to do some things that cost money. And so it was the combination of how I want to be spending my time. Where's my 20%? Like where am I the
Mm.
most feeling alive? Where am I adding the most value? And really the kind of money I wanted to make. That was part of the big part of the realization where it was like, you know what, I can't get there doing this. Maybe I can make the money, but I'm not going to have the time. And
Mhm.
it was part of that. And then I joined a couple of masterminds that helped me to realize that the way to get there is through, again, building a business.
Yes. And that's a huge realization. And it's not easy because I mean,
No.
and saying no to the money is really hard too, because you say like, hey,
Mhm.
you can make this much money. And yeah, it's a lot of work, but it's pretty secure, and it's significant, and you could support your lifestyle, but you just have to keep on going. And I think that's
Yeah.
where, and for me, like it took a lot of humility to be like, you know what, the reason why I'm not hiring the people I need is because I think I can do everything better. And
Yeah.
honestly, I can't. And honestly, I
Yes.
don't want to. And now I'm not willing to sacrifice my happiness because actually the ego died. And so that
Yeah.
is very helpful. Like,
I
everybody can do stuff better than me. And if they can, great, go for it, because
Yeah.
I'm totally into that. So is it in terms of let's talk about the hiring, because I know you worked as a
Mhm.
CMO for a while, built that team of 30. Is there
Yeah.
a reason why you may have avoided, you know, building a new team just like you did before?
Yeah, I think it was that at my level, eventually, getting to the size that it was, there's just politics that happen at the business. There's, when you hire people, we're human beings, and you're not just getting the work version of that
Mm,
person, you're getting the whole person. And so I felt like it was the metaphor, like if you want to go quickly, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. I was just more concerned about going quickly, like just
mm,
building up a sustainable business that and honestly, a part of it was just I felt like I didn't like employees were not required.
mm,
I didn't, in order to be able to achieve the outcomes, the revenue, the lifestyle I wanted. What I found obviously is much different. So I think it was part of like I wasn't ready to, having gone through that whole sort of that growth and the team and everything. I wasn't ready to just jump back in it. Honestly, Mark, I think I just, maybe like I said, PTSD. I needed a break. I
mm.
needed 2 years of just not doing that and getting some space and maybe processing it on some levels until I think I found myself ready to say, well, if what I really want is something that's going to require a business, that's not so bad, is it? Right. And
Mm.
I can see myself hiring people. In fact, I was interviewing someone on my podcast the other day, he was talking about Patrick Lencioni, who's an author who wrote all these like leadership books. And I follow John Maxwell, and
Mm.
he was actually out at that conference in Costa Rica. And these are all leadership folks. And made me remember how much I enjoyed leading a team and being sort of the visionary and helping people to grow in their careers. And there was a lot of joy that I got out of that. So I think maybe a part of it is just not ready yet emotionally to jump back in.
Yeah, well, and that's fine. And I think it's good to recognize like, hey, I need a break. Like I'm tired. Yes, I could keep on going and I could keep on working, keep on pushing, but honestly, you're going to make probably worse decisions than we all know this about rest. Like get some sleep, you'll feel better, you'll be more productive, you do all these things, like just rest. But it's hard because it's like, one, you got the thing hanging over your head, like I got to make money, I got to make sure that I have this level of income, and there's a potential for fail. And for me, like the hiring situation, especially because I think it was just hard for everybody, after that COVID year when the employees all realized that everybody needed employees, and so they were job hopping all over the place. And I had kind of come back into leadership and management during that time, and so all these things that I kind of used in prior positions, maybe like 5-6 years prior to that, didn't work anymore. Like it was a totally different world. And then it just destroyed my confidence and my ability to like, oh man, maybe I really can't find good people. Maybe I'm not good at finding the right help. And it took a while to realize like, no, you just fail sometimes. Like you try and you think you got a good person and then it doesn't work out, and that's just life. So you move on.
Yeah, exactly. And that's my experience as well, where when you hire people, they could be great interviewers, they could be great on resume, and it's just, you really learn once you bring them in. Like there's no way to screen for some of that stuff. So I think that's just a reality that everyone has to deal with.
Well, and it's not a failure on your part if they don't work out.
No.
It just didn't work out, and it could not work out for a million different reasons. But at the end of the day, who cares? It's not a good fit for them. Wasn't a good fit for you. Yeah, everybody's sad about it, but let's go ahead and keep moving. And that was something that you always see the big business leaders, whether you're a fan of Trump or not, he actually has a policy where he fires fast. Like that's one of his business principles. And it's like, man, it's not a bad policy. Because you save a lot of trouble this long, because the thing that happens that I realized, like you try to save somebody, is how I kind of looked at it. And then there's a good chance they poison the whole team. And now you took a situation that might have been one person. Now you just lost like 5 people and you're like, why didn't I do the thing? But now but now, now that you've kind of been out there for a couple of years and you realize like, man, it would be nice to have some help. And, I think I always picture like, okay, I'm going to build a business, I'm going to sell the business, and then I'll be able to chill. And that's what I'll do, or buy real estate or go into one of those more passive type roles. And then other things happen. You have kids, you move, stuff happens. And now you're kind of in a different place. But I mean, the decision to start a business, that's huge. So, do you mind if I ask, like, what kind of business is it?
Yeah, so it's an extension of the coaching and consulting. Effectively, it's that. By the way, I told my wife this the other day, and she's like, "What business do you want to start now?" She's like, "Didn't you just like start this consulting?" I'm like, "Well, let me explain. It's basically
it's part of it.
Part of it, and
evolutionary.
It's the same curriculum. It's just that I'm not required to coach and train people on it. So So the first thing I'm going to build in this regard is a membership program, which is so I'll kind of give you're familiar with this idea of a product ladder or a value ladder, where you have like increasingly more expensive things. Well, at the bottom of the value ladder is my email, which is free. It's a daily email. Then I have a book that I'm launching next month. And at the other end of the spectrum is my high-end consulting gig, right? Where these larger agencies bring me in, and it's very it's actually structured, but it's very high touch. This membership is going to be basically in the middle. And the theory is that people will read the book and they say, "This is great, Corey. However, I need your help, but I'm not quite ready to spend the big dollars to hire you. I'm going to join your membership." And so the idea here is that it is either an annual or a monthly membership that is going to be available to a large audience of folks who will get value out of it. And it's a way for me to kind of go from one to one to one to many as an initial
Love
step
it.
in building my business. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like a solid plan, and you're already
Yeah.
doing, like you said, a lot of it. So it's kind of like,
Yeah.
but you do have to give up the reins a little bit, right? So are you
Yeah.
thinking like you'll have like sub coaches, like the coaches teach your
Exactly.
philosophy?
Exactly. Exactly. And that's eventually um, my first hire effectively is going to be a executive assistant who's going to
Mm,
help me to take off some of the layers of the manual day-to-day work stuff that needs to get done that doesn't necessarily require my input or my opinion on things.
mm.
That's sort of the first hire. Then the second one will be more of a coach, someone who can come in and teach some of the curriculum. And then the third layer will be sales, finding someone to come in and actually help, sell more of the program, if you will.
That's huge. Well, and you already have a game plan. I think that makes a ton of sense, because I think
Mm,
that, once you have like a good executive assistant, you realize like, oh my gosh, I was wasting so much time
yes.
checking stuff and following up and figuring out my
Yeah.
schedule. And, it's very easy to just get in the grind and then not realize just how much time you're spending doing other stuff that
Yeah.
has nothing to do with what you want to do and nothing to do with what actually makes money. And at the
Yeah.
end of the day, you know, that's what matters. And that's what the business owner should be doing, right? Like you're the idea guy, you're the content guy. And then, well, for me, I like making content. So I'm always like, man, if I just sat here and I just made content all day, like I'd be 100% happy with just that. And everybody else could do all the stuff. They could do the sales. They can make all the money, whatever. I'll just do this every day.
And you recently stepped out from digital marketer. What does that progression look like?
Oh man, it's been transitional, so it wasn't just like
Yeah.
abruptly like I'm leaving. Like this was an
Yeah.
agreement that I had with digital marketer, the owners of digital marketer, and we all knew what was going on. So it wasn't even like, and we had a plan. Like this was like a 3-month, 4-month transition that we went through for me. So it was very light, and I have my backup plans. I'm kind of a planner, so I have like multiple
Mhm.
plans in different
Yeah.
cases of things happening. And honestly, this was like, we at digital market, we always had the good, better, best. Like that's how we project out our sales. And so I did the same thing. Like, okay, here's the best scenario, and here's the okay scenario,
Yeah.
and here's like the barely game by scenario. And I got the best scenario. So like my whole transition was fantastic. But in the process,
Wow.
now that I'm doing consulting, it's the same thing that you probably realize, like, oh, this is still a lot of work. I'm still tired and I'm still on demand, and I have control of my schedule, but a lot of it's like, now I got to show up. I got to do these things. So yeah, I'm probably not as close as you are because I got to keep hustling for a little bit. But yeah, the more I kind of get out there, and I'm like, man, I really just like making content. Like that's what I like to do. I like to give away information. Like that's, some people like the only reason they give it away is because you're trying to sell something, right? For me, I'm like, no, I love just saying, here, try this thing. If it goes great, great. If it doesn't go great, whatever. It was free, just go
Yeah.
nuts. So that's kind of where I'm headed now, where I'm just like, how do I give away everything but make money
Mhm.
doing it? So I'm going for like a
Yeah.
referral model where like somebody like you, I could be like, hey, I know Corey. Corey is awesome at setting up marketing for agencies. And so we're going to
Yeah.
go ahead and partner and create some content and maybe a course about marketing management for marketing companies, and
Yeah.
then we'll collaborate, and then I'll send him traffic for the big sale. So that's the sort of plan, is to send
Okay.
my friend's business. Imagine a world where your brand transcends visibility, embedding itself into the consciousness of your customers. Welcome to the AI Branding Bootcamp, where this vision becomes reality. Dive into AI-powered research, strategy, and execution to create a brand that's not just recognized, but felt. From crafting your brand's avatar to mastering AI-generated content, emerge with a brand that resonates deeply. Ready to transform your brand into an unforgettable experience? Join us at the AI Branding Bootcamp. The future of branding begins now.
What about this AI driven brand thing you got going? I find
Oh,
that super interesting.
it's so funny because I put that, I use AI for everything. But, at this point, saying that you use AI is like saying that you use a cell phone or a laptop or a car. It's just like, yeah, I know. That's what we do. So the AI part is just like what I realized actually with all these companies that I've been a part of and all these businesses that I've built is that the branding side, man, the branding is so all encompassing. And the only reason why we don't do it better is because it's really hard to organize. But we have AI now. And so now you have to, you could just set the parameters of every aspect of your business. And because AI could essentially regenerate content that anybody in your business makes, now you could get really solid on your branding, and you could really control the narrative, and you could really control, the interaction with the customer. And it all originates from the branding. And so when I talk about branding, it's not just, logo and fonts and colors. It's like, no, we're going interactive. We're going experiential. We're going community based. How do people treat each other? How do you expect your employees to treat the customers? How do you expect employees to treat each other? How do you show up at events? And so to me, all of this is branding. And if you get it down right, then it's all going to reinforce all your other marketing. And so now you're taking like a very inefficient system that was like partitioned out and everybody's kind of doing their own thing. Now they're all reinforcing each other. And so you could actually, increase your efficiency by like orders of magnitude if you do it properly. So that's kind of where it came from. And then I can use all this AI stuff that I've been developing. Like I write prompts like breathing. It's not even difficult.
I think it's, you're definitely prolific in that regard. And I'll just share from my perspective that a lot of people are using AI, but they're using it for relatively low value type of tasks. Let's say, blog posts and all this stuff. In general, there's people like yourself who've figured out how to leverage this tool for something as powerful and as strategic as brand. And so I think that there's a tremendous demand for that in the marketplace. And I think that the how you're branding and positioning it is very compelling. So I'm curious to see how that grows for you. Yeah.
It's been great. And the people in the boot camp have been responding really well, where I'm kind of like, hey, big, have questions like to explain everything. They're like, you explained everything. And it's great. And I'm like, this is weird. Like it doesn't usually go this well. There's always, questions, but really what I'm trying to do is just make it so idiot proof that literally anybody can do it. But thanks to how you could use AI, it's still super custom and it's still more you than anything you've ever created is. Like it literally just spits out things based on the, everything you admire and everything that's successful in your industry. And then everything that you think the brand should be. Like it combines all of that into a single thing. I call it the brand blueprint. And then that's what drives the brand avatar, which is the personification of your brand. And then it totally works. Like it's incredible. And now you can generate pictures of, the brand avatar, your spokesperson, essentially. Now you can animate that using AI. And I mean, it's incredible. And that's why I'm like, this is like the golden age of marketing as far as I'm concerned.
It is. And almost every company I deal with, except for very sophisticated, large SaaS companies, their branding, their brand strategy is in shambles. They don't understand it. And when it comes to consistency, which in my experience is a big part of branding, there's none across the brand, right? So being able to provide a solution. So in any event, I think that's super interesting. I have a question for you.
Sure.
What's your first hire?
Oh, you know what? I think it would probably be like you. I think the executive assistant, because it's just like, if you could even double the amount of time that you have, like, or not even double, let's say 25% more time than you have, and you're working 10 hours a day. I mean, that's a huge savings. And then the amount of stress, because I'm not good at the, scheduling. Like I actually 2 days ago, I scheduled a podcast, my AI branding boot camp, and guesting on another mastermind all at the same time. And so I'm like, oh God, I'm so bad at this. So I had to move the podcast, and then I cut the course a little bit short. And then I went to the half of the other mastermind and I did it all. And that was one of like 10 meetings in the day. And I'm just like, this is not going to work long term. I'm going to have a heart attack. But it's awesome to be in demand. I mean, the whole process, my whole process has been so much, I know the reception has been so much better than I could have even predicted, where I'm like, I set up my podcast calendar. I was like, okay, I got the podcast calendar. I'll send it to all my friends, whoever signs up, great. And so then all the slots were full, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm doing 20 podcasts in 2 weeks or maybe more. I forget, it might be like 25. But no, it's been great. It's been amazing. But yeah, just to answer your question, executive assistant, I think that makes a ton of, and an in-person one, is that what you're thinking? Or are you going VA?
So, I live in Los Angeles, and it probably makes much better sense for me to not hire someone in LA, because I could probably get same skill set, but for a more competitive price in somewhere else, but probably domestically, stay in the
Yeah, I think
US.
that makes sense. Yeah,
Yeah.
there are barriers to, doing the, outside the country, and then you have time zone differences. And even if somebody's willing to work like in the middle of the night, it's like, I don't want to make somebody do that.
Yeah.
It sounds
Right.
terrible.
Yeah. In the Philippines. Yeah. It does sound horrible.
Now,
Yeah.
with that said, what's your hiring plan? I actually wrote an article in that magazine I put out that was the 1 to 60 hiring method. That was how to interview 60 people for an executive role. And you get that shot. That was fun.
Yeah. I will check that out for sure. I'm actually in the research phase. I recently joined, you know who Dan Martell is?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he's an author, and he runs SaaS Academy. He also wrote a book called Buy Back Your Time. Well, he has a mastermind that I'm a part of now, because I went crazy on masterminds. But he has a whole sort of curriculum on how to hire the right assistant. And so I've not looked at it yet, but I'm collecting resources, and so I need to actually start focusing on this now, because I've got my book launch coming next month, and there's a lot of like little work that has to be done, and getting email addresses and sending out emails and all these things. There's no way I'm going to be able to do it. So it's like, when do I find the time to start this process? But I need to do it, and then so I'm gonna start that process, yesterday.
Nice.
Soon.
Yeah, that's good. Well, I'll tell you what I do, especially when
please.
I don't have that much time, is I just try to chip away at it. Like I just okay, 30 minutes. I can do 30 minutes not thinking about anything else than this thing that I know has to get done. And so a lot of times what I'll do is create procedures where I'm just like, okay, I know this has to be done. Eventually I'm going to hire for it. So if I could just write the procedure now, then I'm adding on to, the process of hiring, automating, the actual transition into getting somebody else to do the work. And I'll know it's right because this is the way I did it. Not to say they're not going to evolve the process, but a lot of times I think the biggest mistake I've made in the past, I've seen other people make, is expecting the hire to do the thing that you're supposed to do. And it's like, no, you still got to do it first. And then you could,
And Dan said something it's sort of bouncing around in my head, which I like, which is that it's not going to be 100%. It's not going to be the same. The way they're not going to care as much, and so you're going to get the same results as if you did it. But the way he says it is like 80% done is 100% awesome, right? Because at least it's done.
Yeah. Well, and that was actually my big epiphany too, where I'm just like, man, I know I could do this stuff. Actually, my social media has been going way better when I finally told my assistant to do it. I said, hey, I'm just going to give you a pile of content. You do social stuff with it. And then I'll have some social content, because I'm just totally overthink it. And I'm just like, oh, well, I can say it like this, I can say it like that. And I'm just like, no, just, you already made the content, just hand it to somebody. For you, you got the book, which is awesome, because you can just say, hey, turn this book into stuff. And good content creator do that.
Yeah, exactly. And then I can go focus on making money.
Well, I'll focus on talking to people, because honestly, I mean, really just from like, what are we going to be doing when AI essentially takes over everything that I think AI should do, which is robotic, repetitive, boring data tasks that we're not good at anyways. Like you should be talking to people, you should be meeting, you should be networking, you should be selling. Like that's the relational stuff that I don't think is ever going to go away. And do stuff in person, which is another thing, because of AI and because of deep fakes and the fact that you can't trust anything online anymore means that we're all going to have to show up in person, because there's literally no other way to tell if the person you're talking to is actually the person you're talking to.
It's funny you say that. We were driving to dinner last night. It was Valentine's Day yesterday. So my family, we went to Korean barbecue because we love that for Valentine's Day. And the conversation in the car was, what is going to be our secret word that we'll have to use when you're not sure whether or not you're interacting with someone in the family, type of thing. Where there was this thing in China. I guess some big bank CEO in China got duped out of wiring $25 million because they were acting with a sort of a deep fake person instead of the real person. In any event, that got us talking. And like, I'm sure that they're not building a deep fake for me or my wife, but in the case that, like, it gets that sophisticated, it's like, we need a secret word that no one knows that we can use to sort of self-identify.
Oh, that's smart. I'm actually going to come up with that for my family. Well, the thing that happened recently, and this doesn't have to do with the voice thing, but I have heard of that happening where somebody gets a call from their, child, and maybe it's an adult child. Hey, mom, I need $500 wired to this account. I can't explain right now. Go. And so a lot of people are getting ripped off with that. But the bigger one that I saw recently was Aaron Parkinson, one of our, or one of the digital marketers, paid media coaches. And he says that he lost like $700,000 in business because people's Facebook ad accounts were getting hacked. And then the person would go in and they'd spend, do like $10,000 in ad spend. It gets shut down, but the actual ad account would get shut down. And they can't just reopen it. So then these companies that were maybe spending like $500,000 a month on Facebook went to zero, and then couldn't have Aaron.
It's horrible.
Oh, yeah. It's terrifying. And that was I think that's from the other ability with AI, which I think is the much more powerful thing that nobody's talking about, which is just standard programming, standard code writing. AI can now do. And that's the most powerful thing, because how much are programmers, and what incentive does a programmer have to make transferable code if they could make not transferable code? And so AI is breaking that. But now you have things like a hacker could probably recreate Facebook in like, a day, and then send a very legitimately maybe it operates exactly the same as Facebook. And how are you going to know the difference? Now what Aaron did was he actually had trainings for his clients to say like, hey, nobody from anything other than Facebook is going to contact you about your ad account. So do not respond to any of it. Just ignore it. But I mean, it's a interesting world.
It is an interesting world. I agree. It's I think the future, I know you have young kids. I've got a 9-year-old boy. He's going to live in a much different world than we lived in, I think, as a result of this.
Man. Just thinking about that, I'm kind of like, well, because I've always been kind of a futurist where I'm like, okay, here's what I think is going to happen next. And now it's just like with all the developments and all the craziness that's happening, I'm kind of like, man, I don't know. Like, I don't know how it's going to go. Like education itself is, I've talked to educators about this, and they're kind of like, no, AI is not going to affect education. I'm like, that is the number one place that needs to be affected by AI. Because what I tell people is, I'm like, traditionally what you have is a classroom full of 15 to say 30 kids. You have a standardized curriculum, and the teacher will try to tweak it wherever possible to customize it for the kids. But just imagine that every single lesson could be customized, and not just customized, but you could relate it to the personal interest of every single person you talk to. So if you love golf and you need to learn a very complex topic, now AI can just correlate that topic to golf. And now you not only understand it, but you'll be interested in the content, and you'll remember it because you know golf and you love golf. And so that alone, just what I just said, would change everything, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Kids would, they'd probably be able to learn a lot faster, and a lot of waste that exists in schools today. I'm not sure how you feel about it, but schools are, generally speaking, built for an era that's long past, which was the sort of the industrial age, right, where people are, taught like factory farm teaching, where it's missing a lot of really great nuance. So I'm excited for that. I'm excited for things like autonomous cars, and I used to have a 2-hour commute every day, and that was unbearable. And now my son probably will never drive a car if he doesn't want to, that type of thing. So it's definitely going to be interesting.
Well, we'll see. I'm kind of like, man, because I always explain the car situation, because everybody's like, oh, I'm never going to give up control of my car. I'm like, all right, number one, 50 to 60,000 people a year die in car accidents. So you're saying that we do a good job with a number that far surpasses some of our wars and some of our epidemics and some catastrophes. Like, it far outweighs that every single year as the number one killer of teenagers. And we think we're doing a good job. It's like, no. But further than that, just the logic of it is, we can't build more roads, and there's always more cars. And so how can you make better traffic with less roads or the same amount of roads is you increase efficiency by decreasing the space in between cars and stuff that robots can do. And then
Yeah.
we don't all crash into each other and
It'll
drive drunk.
it'll
Eat a
make
phone.
Los Angeles livable again.
It will, and everybody will be happier. I'm kind of like, you guys are
Yeah.
crazy. You think you want all this
Yeah. No.
control. No, you
Yeah.
don't.
And honestly, some people can have their cars. That's fine. I don't, I mean, I like driving. It's not a bad thing for me, but if I can not have to drive 45 minutes to go to downtown Los Angeles as an example, but still get there and I can be on Instagram or be talking to my son and like,
Have a
that time is
meeting.
have a meeting. Have much better spent not driving, but getting somewhere. I'm all for it.
Yeah, I've been coming back to California a lot, and I've been in LA,
Yeah.
and I'm just like, man, because it's not just that it takes a lot of time. It's like by the time you get somewhere, you're fried. You're just like,
Yeah.
man, oh, that was a drive, and it's
It's not a peaceful drive. It's a stressful,
well, you
white
gotta be on your
knuckle in
toes.
traffic. Yeah, it's serious, man. So yeah, that no one likes that. I think Elon, who I don't know if you've had a chance to check out his the latest biography on him, but what I learned in reading that was that that's one of his passions is trying to figure out how to get a self-autonomous, self-driving car so that he doesn't have to do the commute to the office, right? I mean,
It sounds
it's being worked on. Yeah.
Well, I think everybody just has to get on board, but I mean, it's just the barrier is not even the technology anymore. It's really the politics and then the logistics, right? You'd have to coordinate all the companies to agree on some kind of software that the cars can communicate to each other. You'd have to agree on the regulations of how that data is used. You'd have to agree on how it interacts with traffic lights in every single city in the country because we all have different traffic laws. I mean,
that's right. Yeah, forget about it.
Like
it's gonna be wild.
Well, I mean, I think it could happen. Well, I think it has to happen because it's just like I said, we can't keep on building roads. Like it's just there's not enough room. We're already having to restructure cities, like here in Austin, where the population exploded, and now it's just like,
oh my god,
you can't get anywhere. And there's only a couple roads to each place. So I think it's whether people like it or not, like this is just going to be reality. And the sooner you get on board, what's the alternative? We keep crashing into each other and being stressed out and wasting hours a day. That doesn't sound smart. You can still have your track car.
trade-off. Yeah, exactly. Why not?
Yeah, no. Well, that's awesome. I love your perspective because I think it's it's just going to happen and it's not a bad thing. And I think it's the fear of the AI and job loss, like the job loss is already happening. It's not because of AI necessarily. It's probably a factor in a certain percentage of it. But I think more people are just realizing that, hey, maybe you don't like working in an office where you complain all day 24/7 is not your ideal environment, not the best version of you, And I think
funny, I saw I think there's a restaurant, I think in San Francisco or Seattle somewhere, where it's the first fully autonomous restaurant. And they have Flippy, who's the robot that goes in and like flips the burgers on the grill type of thing. And it's kind of a commercial kind of thing that's hitting the media right now. But I think some people are really concerned about, taking away sort of these type of jobs, but that is big picture. Yes, maybe in the short run, there may be some shifting of jobs, but that opens up a lot of opportunities to focus on maybe higher value jobs and finding ways to increase the quality of the training and the speed of the training so that people can focus on those instead of those low value tasks, maybe be trained up to help provide more value in the economy.
Yeah. Well, and you'll be able to do stuff that you actually want. I always tell people like, believe it or not, if you've never tried building something with wood, you might actually enjoy it. It might be a pleasurable experience to create something that you could actually see and hold. And I think that's, why all the trade positions, which we have a severe lack of literally every thing that we need, contractors and electricians and plumbers and, anybody who could build anything, like that's what we need right now. Mechanics.
The irony is that those are great jobs, great careers, very well paying jobs. And, whether you're a business owner or a technician, you can make a very great, comfortable living doing something, to your point, that's very satisfying versus sort of dealing with going into an office and dealing with all
Being
the
bored.
fun stuff that, being bored and asked to do things that don't make sense and all those crazy things.
Yeah. No, so I think it's all good. And I think you're
Yeah.
you're actually probably ahead of the wave is what I think. So I
Mm.
think you're gonna, whatever business you decide to do is probably gonna do awesome
Yeah.
just based on,
Thank you, Mark.
your timing, your experience, and
Mm.
really this transition into a new age of marketing. Because at the end of the
Yeah.
day, the whole siloed thing that we've been doing for 10, 15 years isn't working. The lack of
Mm.
branding and care for the customer, honestly, that was always a thing that we all said, like, oh no, customer is number one. But if you look at most businesses, customer is not number one. Customer is a
Oh.
pain in the butt that you don't even
Mm.
like to deal with. And that's a problem. Like if your whole business wasn't based on providing a solution to the people who have a problem that you can solve, then that's bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. That's a short-lived business.
not just short-lived business, but you're not going to like it. The customer's not going to be happy. And honestly, I think since we had this contraction of the amount of money that people have available, they're being a lot more picky with what they do and where they spend their money, and they want stuff that lasts. I think we've all done, I was used like dishwashers and washer and dryers because I'm just like, how many times have I had to fix this dryer I just bought for, $2,000 like 2 years ago? That's insane. Like my parents still probably would have their same fridge if it wasn't pink. So no, I think it's great. I love your business idea. I think it's completely necessary.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's incremental. I want to, interestingly, I want to start another niche agency, targeting therapists and psychologists, psychiatrists.
Okay.
Like it's an underserved market, and a lot of the things that I teach my clients could be applied in my own world. So that's going to be, once I get my membership going and then get the business, get a couple employees, then I'm going to move into starting my own agency, which will be fun.
Excellent. Well, keep me updated on that. I built a few brands for therapists. I think I did a ketamine clinic and then several types of kind of self-help therapy. And so it's they all need help. And honestly, I think they're definitely growing because there's more unhappy people.
There's my wife is a psychiatrist. She's very she's gratefully busy in that she's able to stay busy and help people. But there's a lot of demand for that right now. Interestingly, it's a market that's been a little overlooked as relates to digital marketing solutions. There's either super over-engineered stuff or stuff that just doesn't make sense for them. So there's a little gap right now in the market. So I'm excited to try to fill that.
That's awesome. I think there's definitely an opportunity there, and you're the right guy for the job. So I'd love to have you back on in a few months and kind of see how things are developing.
Great.
Maybe you'll have the book out. We come talk about that.
I'll have the book out. We'll talk about the membership and all my employees and all that good stuff.
There you go. And say, I had to fire all of them.
Yeah.
No. We won't have that conversation. You're going to say they all worked out great. Well, thank you so much, Corey. Appreciate your time.
Thanks,
where can people learn more about you in the meantime?
Yeah. So you can check my website out. It's CoreyQuinn.com really easily. And my book is Anyone, Not Everyone. And you can find that at anyonenoteveryone.com, where you could download a free audiobook version of the book.
Fantastic. Oh, and you did audio. Man, I've been waiting for people to start doing that more often. I've actually gotten the habit of using Descript to automate all the books I want to listen to. So no, good job. You're ahead of the curve. You're gonna do great.
Talk about AI. Actually, there's now you can record your voice and then it'll actually read your book for you in your voice using AI. So that's coming too.
That's awesome. Yeah, actually, I did that with Descript. I will tell you though, if you use Descript for it, make sure you use like the tone, because I did a very like single monotone, and then it's like it just sounds like that.
The whole thing.
Well, next time what I'm gonna do is go like, oh, happy or like excited, and then and you just have to read
more variation.
Oh, man, I think I did a 20-minute script, so I'm hoping it's not that long next time. It's like read this for 20 minutes. Well, thank you so much, Corey. Oh yeah,
thanks, Mark. Appreciate you, Ray.
All right. And thank you so much for listening. This has been Podcast Mark, where we talk about a whole bunch of stuff surrounding business. But at the end of the day, it's about our lives, and it's about as entrepreneurs, business leaders, and, people who are transitioning what they're doing, which I think everybody needs to do if they want to be happy. So tune in next time and get more of this type of content.